Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo alongside you guys. Please like, subscribe, comment, stay on the channel as long as you guys like. Obviously, follow us on Apple and Spotify and any other audio platform that you listen to your podcasts on. We've had great progress over the past year or so. This is really kind of in our second full season of this podcast. We didn't even get a name till a few months ago. So the progress has been great. It's been a lot of fun, and we've kicked off another season for Milan. And right away, Matt, it was dramatic. It was chaotic. It was perplexing. We'll start off with the starting 11, right? Obviously, we knew a few of the new summer signings weren't going to be ready as starters for this game. No Reinders and Theo Hernandez as well for Milan. We see Chow and Loftus-Cheek slot into those two positions. Alexis Salamakers goes in at the left back spot as well, which was also very confusing. Terracciano looks like he's on his way to Como, maybe. So it didn't really seem like Fonseca wanted to trust him. Jimenez was with the Futuro team, so they really didn't stick with a left back here. They put Alexis out of position, which questions some people. But when you have that combination of him, a really bad Calabria, a declining Calabria, Loftus-Cheek, Chow, those issues that persisted all of last season for Milan centrally being exposed were shown right again with this. And it started with that Chow own goal. No communication, it seemed like. Everyone was sort of out of sorts. Expecting it to be fixed on match day one with this sort of lineup, maybe naive of most fans, including myself. But yeah, it was a little rough on the selection side of things. And that first half in general was really poor. Just sort of discuss that and how you think that transpired over the course of the match.
I think the conversation has always been, over the past couple of years with Milan and, the team they trot out there in matches against, no disrespect, but the middle of the table to bottom of the table teams where it's always been, it's not that great, but it should be enough.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I felt like with this starting 11. You had Jovic, who did some decent things last year. He did it mostly in the second half. He did it mostly off the bench,
Yep.
Not in a starting role, which is a much different pace and flow of the game. He's a different type of striker. He's not someone against the run of play that's going to run in behind and do a lot of good things for you there. He's an opportunistic striker in the box, right? And then you look at the attack and you look at the midfield and you're like, all right, there's enough here. Torino shouldn't threaten us too much. They got a new coach. They're having new ideas like we are, and they're trying to implement those ideas. So you look, you're like, all right, Milan should get the win here, right? I know our expectations were a little too lofty. I think we both had victories. We both had, I think, 3-1 or 2-1 or 2-0.
I had them cruising, yeah.
Yeah, we both had pretty cruising, comfortable driver's seat wins for Milan. And they go down 2-0. They look every bit the same team as last year. Midfield doesn't look balanced. Loftus-Cheek with Benacer doesn't look
missing
that great.
chances.
Missing chances, yes, to really put themselves in a comfortable position. Rafa Leao had a couple in this match as well. The one, obviously, by Vanja Milinkovic-Savic saving was a great save, but truthfully, I thought a player of his caliber should make that. 1v1, he could probably, woulda, shoulda, coulda.
I think he projected it a little too much. It just seems so obvious where he was going.
Yeah, and I tweeted about it. I thought he was going to make one of those like snapshot, like near post finishes because he's done that quite a bit with us.
Yeah.
Like Mbappe does too. Went for our post, great save, but he also had a missed chance. And all credit to Torino. I don't think they were anything spectacular, but they were a team that took advantage of the defensive lapses in Milan's end.
Yeah.
And the goal that Duvan Zapata headed, I mean, this is the biggest guy on the field. He, what type of striker he is. He loves a header. He loves to get up on the end of those headers and
just
attack it. And there's miscommunication. Chow drops, completely gives him a free header, and that was that. And
there was a lot to that play, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Calabria burnt like you've ever seen, someone who doesn't play the sport for like 5 years, gets on the pitch, and they just get so easily passed by, and the person is sort of like, okay, yeah, I should stop. This is enough. He gets burnt there. TG doesn't perfectly close on him in Reinders, right? That cross went there. Then you're looking at Teo and Chow. That's where the real lack of communication exists, right? Because I was talking to Frank Crivello of that with Serie A sit down of, I think the first goal was just an overall system issue, but the fundamentally easy communication on that goal was just embarrassing. How does Teo and Shaw have played together before, right?
Yeah.
They know each other.
Yep.
Guys in that back line, that entire back four, when Teo was subbed on, had played with one another. They should know how to communicate and who has to talk to who, who's covering. You can't have Duvan Zapata, who is still a deadly finisher in the 18-yard box, be free like that. It was really bad. I put it on both Chow and Teo, but again, that's Chow involved in both goals. We know he is young. We know he came off an injury last year. It's difficult to grow, but this is a player devoid of all confidence right now. This isn't somebody who should be getting any more opportunities after what we just saw this past weekend. And I mean, like, he should not be playing unless they absolutely have no choice but to play him, because it's been that bad. Decision-making, just overall positioning. He just looks scared to kind of make a mistake. He hesitates far too often, and it's been costing him. It's been costing Milan, where they're now sitting at 1 point. Okay, the comeback is fine. We'll get into that. But as far as Fonseca's selections go, because we could get to the attack, because Chukwueze and Pulisic were really poor in this one as well. Kind of disappointing, but it's hard to get things going when that midfield isn't really helping you out that much. It was just dysfunction on all levels. Again, you said it yourself. The best player of the match was Mike Maignan for Milan. Yeah. I probably thought he should have gotten it over Okafor, but Okafor's goal was great. We'll get to that. But again, it's just really, you're sitting there wondering, how long is this going to take for Fonseca? And we'll get into who he might start this coming week against Parma. We'll talk about that as well. But the selections for Fonseca, did he think it was too simple against Torino? Did he kind of back off too much? Did he think that this was an easier match than he would have thought? Because I'm not going to get on him too much. It's his first match. He was trying something. And you were even saying yourself, and I don't disagree with you, that should have been enough to stop Torino. They shouldn't have been conceding those 2 goals that they concede. But how many times do we say that about this team? We say that quite often. I think his selection with Salamakers was the real glaring issue on top of Loftus-Cheek. I don't understand how Loftus-Cheek is being played in a double pivot. He isn't a double pivot midfielder. He has no idea how to man mark like that. He is great as a box-to-box midfielder in Serie A. I think he would be an awesome box-to-box if he was in a system that would predicate to his skills. This system does not do that. He does not have the skill set for that. My thing is, why not start Reinders and then sub him out? If it's about minutes, then play him the set amount of minutes, then sub him out instead of starting off this game like that. To me, there were poor selections from Fonseca on this 11. Maybe there's some excuses because certain players aren't ready because they returned late into the summer. The summer signings came in late. But man, this was, I mean, everybody scratched their heads when they saw Salamakers at left back, right? And I'm sure you did yourself.
It's weird because you look at, what we saw in preseason, right? And the formations, and you kind of thought, all right, well, and if nothing else, maybe they're going to give some opportunity to somebody else to play at left back, right? That maybe they would have in the roster. Now, again, it's easy for me to say that when truth of the matter is, you have Jimenez, who is in Milan Futuro. You have, Terracciano is on his way out, and they're trying to shed weight, right? So you kind of initially saw what Fonseca was trying to do by putting Alexis there. He was saying, I've seen enough of this guy. How bad could he be? That's basically what Fonseca was going.
I hear what you're saying, yeah.
Because if I looked at the rest of the 11, was more or less a lineup we saw last year for large parts of the season, right? Minus Giroud, right? Or Giroud and Jovic swapped out, right?
Whatever, yeah.
And Tijani. But more or less, like, this is a lot of players. There's a lot of players within that 11 that were familiar. They've played with one another. This wasn't 5 to 6 different names, 7 different names. Yeah. So you'd expect, again, at least those players to be on the same wavelength and to have that communication that you just mentioned, in the more fundamentally driven situations and scenarios that present themselves in a match, like that cross in the box with Malik Chow and Teo. Milan tied this game and gave up two goals. It wasn't really so much on, in my view, Alexis individually. It's this collective team still failing to do the basics in a consistent manner, and they fall victim of it, but with self-inflicted gunshots. It's like one of those things where you look at, you're like, the collective quality is there, and individually the quality is there, but it's like the basics. All right, mark your guy.
Yeah,
And there was many chances. How many times did Mike Maignan have to come into?
Maignan had 2 to 3 fantastic saves.
He had a great game.
It was crazy. Yeah,
he had a great game, right? Like, so that, I mean, if you want to say something from this game, Mike Maignan looked really great, and that's reassuring.
I mean, that's positive because he was pretty subpar last year. So
yeah,
that
was pretty average last year. So look, I want to kind of take something straight from the Roma press guys. You know, John Solano does a great job with that podcast. We've talked with him at length about Roma stuff in our previous podcast projects. And I think he made a great point when he was talking about Roma's match day one. It was one of those things where you look at the squad, and this is more of like a sport-wide issue, is why is the market still going on when there's meaningful match days playing? You have guys, you have a slim roster, so you can't play Terracciano because you're trying to sell them. You can't play certain guys because you're trying to sell them and let them go. So now you have less guys available because you're still trying to potentially get other guys in. So it's like, I don't know. And you look at what these other teams are putting out there as far as their benches, it's limited. You have Dybala playing for Roma, and he's gonna leave. Like, he's gonna leave. He's playing games for them because who else are we gonna play? We can't get the other guy in.
They needed the 3 points. They were going to do what they were doing.
So if Milan were in a position where they were saying, okay, well, we're going to get rid of Terracciano, maybe they switch things around and they get an actual suitable fullback in there. In this situation last year, what Milan would have done and been able to do, again, it wasn't ideal, but we saw many times last year it would be Calabria and Florenzi. Calabria would be your left back, and it's like, he's not great, but at least he's a fullback. Alexis is not even a fullback. I know he's played right back, right wing back, but you're playing him on the opposite flank of what he's good at, and you're playing him at left back. He was getting absolutely torched. Bellanova had a field day with him.
Because he's not a good one-on-one defender.
No, he's not.
Is a huge part of the fullback.
In long distances, he doesn't have the legs. He was getting burned. Like in a short field. In a short field, I think he's a decent enough crosser. He's pretty smart with the ball in those spots.
He's great at pressing, but not this.
Going in those situations where Torino, the game plan is simply counterattack. They'll give you the ball, and then they're going to try to hit you on the counter and make the most of those chances. Yeah. How many times was it Alexis caught up pitch? And there was even a couple instances late in this game, Martino, towards the very end, where we were so committed going forward that Torino just hoofed the ball, and Mike Maignan came off his line, way off his line, to the midfield.
The dribble.
Like, that's how dysfunctional it was. So I think it was a very shocking thing to see because, we talked about in our preseason coverage, right? Each game where the ideas look good, the system looks pretty good. We know this isn't going to be the group of players that plays on a consistent basis for Milan, but at least you can see the sort of the framework of what Fonseca wants to do. So for us to be so dysfunctional and disheveled and just like, oh, who covers this guy? Who marks this in a home opener is very alarming. I'm not going to put too much into it because, again, I'm not going to say Fonseca's this. And people have overreacted already. I understand people's frustration. 2-2, Inter, look what Inter did. Look what Roma did. Napoli got absolutely thumped, right? So, like, match day one, it's kind of strange, but we need to see some progress, right? Especially with the implementation of these newer players, because what fans are going to be concerned about is, well, we have the new coach and we have a lot of the players that were consistently playing last year. What happens when you put your brand new guys in there that have no familiarity whatsoever with how the other players play? Emerson, Pavlovic, all these sorts of guys.
That's really it. There, maybe Fofana, maybe. I will say this. The thing, and I tweeted it today, I'm not sure if you saw it, but what I said was, okay, you could take away from the two Milan clubs 2-2, right? Disappointing results for both. They went in different directions.
Yeah.
The goals that Inter conceded, you won't see Inter concede those again. The Jan Sommer,
concentration from them.
It was weird. Bisek, it was an awkward handball. It was a handball, but that is unlikely to happen again. Jan Sommer, he should tip that ball over the bar and let it go out for a corner. Yeah. He tried to tap it back in. Short guy problems, right? So that was like uncharacteristic of Inter, but yet they still drew. For Milan, there's positives and negatives, and I want to get to some of the positives because there certainly were some. It's the same shit. It's the same shit, man. Different day, different year. What did we just spend like 15 minutes on just now? They're conceding the same damn goals. It's the same players. That's what's annoying about it, because the manager changed, some of the players are new, but also they didn't play some of these players. And we'll get into that, because the impact of these players is going to be talked about in a moment. But the positives and negatives. We got into the negatives, right? We'll go into some of the positives. The positives were Teo Hernandez is still alive. He's good. Even though he came on late. Tijani Reinders looked fantastic. That pass, I think you mentioned the pass as well on Twitter. That pass to Leao where he kind of lost his footing and balance on that overhead pass was great. I believe TG also got the assist to Morata. When Morata planned on that goal reminded me so much of Giroud's goal in the 1-0 victory over Napoli the year they won the Scudetto, where he just redirects it with his foot, but he knew exactly where to stand. Morata, unfortunately, didn't. The broadcast that we were getting over here, it looked like he did have contact with his foot, but I'm sure there was other angles where the ball was won first. So not getting that penalty was kind of devastating. Rafa had, I still love the way Rafa is approaching his game offensively. And I mentioned it, I think I mentioned it after the Monza match, where he's more direct. He's trying to shoot more. Sure, it doesn't look great right now. The ball striking ability isn't quite there. And I don't ever think he's going to be an elite finisher, because expecting that in his mid-20s would be sort of naive. But he can be better, and that's important. That wasn't truly there yet. The one-on-one chance, frustrating, but Milinkovic-Savic is also a phenomenal goalkeeper. He just can't project as much. And then again, I will say, they came back from 2-0 when they looked dead. And Yunus Musa, and I'll let you talk about him a little bit more. I thought the cross was great from him. Again, it's inconsistent decision-making. Some of those shots that he took were like, damn it, no, not now.
Hold the ball,
like, wait a second. But the cross was something that he probably doesn't do last year. He doesn't make that sort of attempt, and it's a great run by Okafor. This guy is one of the most clutch players I think I've seen in Milan in years. Just the amount of times that this guy comes off the bench and makes a significant impact. Its ball carrying ability, its pressing, its finishing ability is pretty damn good too. And I love the article that I linked with Sempre Milan yesterday on our That Milan podcast account, was no Okafor potentially a Jonathan David situation. Again, the players that came off the bench and performed are the exact players that you and I talk about that can make a huge growth impact this year, not only within themselves, within the team. And we're already seeing signs of it. That's good news. Okay. And unfortunately for Milan, there wasn't enough time. So I will say the positives were that Milan created plenty. They could have had 4 to 5 goals in this match, in my opinion. You could also say they could have conceded at least 3 to 4. So there's that negative there as well. But again, that's mostly with backups. And to be honest, well, not mostly. A good amount of them are players who are not going to be starting in those positions, is what I'm getting at. So yeah, I mean, to get that win is good. Morata, you kind of got a dose of everything with him. He's able to do a lot of things well, and then he has some of these brain farts in front of goal that kind of like where you're like, he's a little bit more like Giroud than we would have liked. But at the end of the day, it's almost a guaranteed 13 to 15 goals in the league. I like some of the positives. I just hate how long they took to surface, because the selections at the start of the match were underwhelming. So your thoughts on the positives today? Or
positives, Mike Maignan, without question. I think that was my main positive. I think for him to, look, he's going to be called on quite a bit this year. I think the defense is hopefully going to be better, but I still think that, when we change at right back, we change at central defense with Pavlovic, and we're going, to be having a lot of interchanging with Gabbia and Chow, and maybe some other players from the Milan Futuro team at the center back position. If we have injuries, because God knows we always do, you're going to ask for Mike Maignan to be his best. And I think that, match day 1, he looked great. He came off the line. He had some really good saves, getting down low, kick saves, getting up high. So that was a very big positive for me. Obviously, it's not ideal. You don't want your goalkeeper having to be, an acrobatic back there and having to bail you out with 5-6 saves. But I mean, when it calls for it, at least you know that Mike Maignan feels like hopefully he is getting back to his previous heights as being, the Scudetto winning goalkeeper. And then the midfield, I would probably say Tijani, because this is a player that I think, might, if not already, be our best midfielder as far as technical ability, reliability, dependability, the fact that you could throw him in at halftime and it's like, we immediately see a difference. Maybe not directly at halftime, but immediately see a difference in the way we play. The way he moves the ball is very sharp. He puts the ball to the feet. That was key in that build up to that goal to Musa, because he kept the ball. There was pressure, swung it, and it was moved with pace. Dude, people will look at passes too, and this is another thing that I, starting to kind of look at much closer. Is you look at pass completion. This player at 95% passes completed, but it's the manner in which the pass is completed. Is the pass slow, and does it kind of slow up the build up to a potential goal scoring opportunity? In that moment, I've seen many midfielders just kind of barely get the pass off. It rolls slowly to him, and now all of a sudden Musa doesn't have that window to make the cross. So the fact that ball was sprayed and put right at Musa's feet for him to do something in a 1v1 situation is crucial. And I think that's what Tijani offers. So once we get him in, I think people are going to start to really see how special this midfielder is. I know last year was a little bit mixed because people were maybe magnifying his lack of goal contributions. I think he had 4 goals, 3 assists in all competitions. I think this is a player that he has too much technical ability. He has too much creativity in his game for him to stay on those numbers. So those are 2.
Yeah.
And I would definitely obviously say Morata. The fact that you're able to bring him off the bench in a match that, look, he hasn't played a ton with this team, right? He's going through a divorce. There's a pressure for him to deliver. He comes off the bench, he scores you a goal. Yeah. I mean, that's huge. If he starts whiffing chances, and that people are going to say, is this distraction? You know how the media is. The main papers in Italy will crucify him. So that there were some positives in this match. Obviously, Okafor as well. I think that Okafor, with performances like this, are really going to force Fonseca into a position where he's going to say, at some point, I got to play this guy because he's too impactful, and Jovic isn't doing enough. He's too static. I know Jovic has had his moments, but maybe it's a reversal. Maybe it's, hey, I don't want to start Morata in this game. I'm going to put Okafor on the bench. I'm going to have Okafor from the bench, and I'm going to bring Jovic in for 15, 20 minutes, like we saw with Pioli last year. So
I think that's best. My question to you is, and it's a little bit more on the rhetorical side because we truly don't know what Fonseca's decision-making will be at the end of the day. But how much sooner is he willing to rectify some of his decisions as opposed to what Pioli used to do? Because Pioli, again, we saw both of these players last year do a great job off of the bench. Milan had the most goals in all of Serie A with players off the bench, and that is mostly led by Okafor and Luka Jovic. And you knew Giroud was struggling to an extent. Morata won't because he's still more mobile. He's able to do more things that Giroud wasn't necessarily able to do. But how often when there's a Champions League fixture and there's a rotation, Noah Okafor is a damn good enough player to start against a lot of Serie A sides. And I think and he's still young. So this development that people are kind of not impatient with, I think they're all overall more impatient with Milan because of that Scudetto win and demanding higher standards. And that's understandable because, it's Milan. But no Okafor here. I think, and I went on Kush's channel, I still said Musa would be the breakout player, but realistically, the closer one of breaking out is Noah Okafor because this is almost a finished product. It's just about game time now and consistent minutes. I think he might be able to get that. We'll see. We'll get into the Parma game sooner, but do you really foresee that to happen? Because you kind of were just alluding to it with the Jovic option off the bench. Because Jovic is terrible as an isolated 9. I just call it what it is. Just flat out, just not good enough. We see posts of his build up and run play, and he loses the ball, and people are trying to praise it.
I think with Okafor, I think it's about opportunity, and it's about getting consistent opportunity. Is he getting only 15 minutes in a match to score a goal, and the next match he's on the bench, and then or the next 2 matches he's on the bench? like we saw so many times with Pioli, which was one of his biggest issues and biggest gripes that I had was, hey, this guy's got momentum. He's playing 2 to 3 good, solid games in a row. He's scoring goals. How about a start? We don't have Kylian Mbappe up there. We don't have a world-class striker putting in goals. If I don't see that, put him in there. Let him play. And I think it was the same conversation that the Sempre Milan guys had. I just listened to their podcast on my way home from work, and they made a great point. He didn't play that much with Switzerland, and the coach cited his lack of minutes. How can I get more minutes if you don't get me minutes? I can't just walk on the field and play. So, like, you look at how many minutes Okafor had last year and the timing of the goals he scored, the Lazio game. I mean, he had so many goals last year where he saved our ass. He saved our ass. And he was largely the credit why we finished second, right? So this is a player that he's physical, he's big, he's shifty. In tight spaces, I think he's a good finisher as well. We saw how he absolutely sat down Pierre Kalulu in the Champions League a couple of years ago when he was with Salzburg. This is a guy that in tight space in the final third, he's tricky. He's a tricky guy with the ball at his feet. And I think that's what Jovic doesn't have. Morata is the guy against the run of play. He can stretch you a little bit. Yeah. He's more like, he has like the opportunistic way about him, but he's a much more mobile player than Giroud. So I think that obviously he's the guy you're going to build your attack around as far as the way we want to play. But Okafor is a guy that when you have teams that are clinging to a 1-goal lead or it's tie and they're happy to get a draw, that's where you need those types of players like Okafor, in my opinion, to unlock those games. 1v1, can he make something happen, get a window, and put a shot on goal and test the keeper? He's that type of forward for me. So that's what I want to see Fonseca use Okafor in those situations.
Yeah. Hopefully, because I think he's so dynamic. Yeah. Man of the match, you said Maignan for yourself. Yeah, no, Okafor got it, by the way, but
it should be Maignan.
I agree with you. Yeah. Noah's impact on the goal was significant, but
it's always going to go to the goal scorer. But
how much more did he do than Morata?
Yeah,
but Maignan's in there for the entire match. They lose the game without him. That's you say the same for these players, but truly, they definitely lose. But yeah, so great to see Maignan play like that. Moving on to this weekend. This is going to be actually on CBS. They sent out Marco Messina to Italy for this. The entire crew, I believe, for Paramount Plus is going out there. So shout out to our friends. Best of luck and have a great game with that. Parma, man, they looked pretty good against Fiorentina. Not sure if you were able to catch that match. They were my number one pick to give an upset as an underdog. Obviously, they ended up tying 1-1, but they really look good out of all the newly promoted sides within Serie A, because Venezia and Como, I think, conceded 6 or 7 goals combined. So not great from either of them. But Parma here, I believe we're going away for this one, or is this still at San Siro? I believe this one is going to be away. So again, this will be on Saturday at 12:30 p.m. I believe. Let's double check.
12:30 or 12:45. I think it's
it's at the Tardini. So again, at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time in the U.S. Listen, have to get 3 points. Quite simple, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else to this. I am curious about what Fonseca does in terms of starting some of these players here, Matt. Not 100% convinced Emerson Royale does get his start, but Pavlovic, Morata, I'm leaning towards saying yes. Pavlovic, maybe there is a switch of Gabia in for Chaw and maybe one more match week before we see a Pavlovic. Or even if he comes on as a sub at some point to try and ease him in. I think Morata definitely starts. If not, it might be Okafor at this point. But it's about integrating these new players. I believe we see Reinders and Teo Hernandez back in the fold. It could be a Reinders-Benacer combination of the two. Maybe Fofana gets his debut with a couple of minutes. Could just be another week for him. But overall, Milan have to go in to a very difficult place to play and pick up 3 points. How are your vibes heading into this one, and who would you like to see start for those players that are clearly obviously not going to?
My vibes are still high. I'm not gonna, put too much stock into the first game. I think that, look, there's a lot of pieces that still need to integrate. This isn't by any means the 11 that we're going to see for most of the season.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and panic. I know some people are, in my mentions and saying, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Fonseca's he's purely 2.0. Guys, stop.
Please, yeah.
Like just please give me one match day. It's match day 1, man. I can't do it anymore. So I think with Teo coming back, Tijani, Morata starting, I think you'll start to see more or less the type of football we expect from Fonseca. The one change, obviously, that I haven't mentioned that I would love to see would be Matteo Gabbia. I think at this point in time, he's a player that's high on confidence. He had a really good return spell for the second half of last season. I think that this is a player that, look, if you want to wait on Pavlovic, fine. But I think there has to be some sort of reward system, and there has to be some sort of accountability and punishment, frankly, because if Milan is slapping such a high price tag on Malak Chow and he's consistently committing errors, you have to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go with the guy that I know can do a job for me until you can figure it out and prove otherwise. I think that you need to light a little bit of fire under Malik's ass, for lack of a better phrase, because I think, when you take Kalulu out, now it's like, Malik's like, this is my job until Pavlovic comes here. And I want to see Gabbia get that opportunity. I think that what Gabbia will offer is it'll never be sexy with him, but I'd like to think that because his head is in the right spot, I think that mentally he's more confident right now. Yeah, I think that those errors that we saw on the weekend feel like they would be less of an occurrence under him with Tomori. Someone you can just stay back.
They were the best defensive pairing they had last year, which is not a great thing. It's not a great thing.
But I think Gabbia's he did a job. He did a solid job, and I think Milan in match day 2, you kind of need to stop the bleeding, and you kind of need to
can't let this snowball into something.
Yeah, more. You can't let this be a theme where, like, New Year, same old Milan. They're giving up 4 goals in 2 games, and they haven't even played the big boys yet. Like, I think that's kind of what the conversation needs to be. So if I'm giving you my 11, it's Mignon. It's probably going to be Calabria. I don't see Emerson starting in this game. I think he comes off the bench. I think it's really possible he comes off the bench. Hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah.
Which is saying a lot, right? It's saying a lot that we're begging for Emerson to play Calabria, right? Tomori, Gabbia, Teo, midfield, Benacer, Reinders until Fofana can make his way in. Yeah. And then I think that, there's a little bit of a conversation with the attack, because I like all 3 players individually that we saw on the weekend. They didn't play that well as a group. Pulisic, Chukwueze didn't do much of anything that warrants me giving them praise. But my question or concern, or maybe my initial doubt, maybe it's me overthinking it too much, but is there not enough ball to go around for those 3 players to be on the same field at the same time? That's kind of where I'm at with them. In certain moments, I think that you can probably do that. But I think that Pulisic is a ball-dominant player. Chukwueze loves to get the ball on the right, cut it on the left. Rafael Leao is the same type of player. He loves the ball at his feet, dribbling, taking guys on. Are there too many of those types of profiles on at the same time for it to not work? Or do you still feel that this is more of just the growing pains of a new coach, players trying to coexist under that coach, and ultimately you feel that these 3 players will be able to do the job together? What do you think about that?
I think it needs a little bit more time to flourish, just because I was the one pushing for this front. I don't want it done so quick, but it was poor. Yeah. It was annoying because Torino were playing so well, but they were still sitting on that low block. And this is why, again, I was hoping Liberali would have gotten some minutes. Really kind of frustrated at that. You wonder where the hook is for Chukwueze. It was really subpar from him and Pulisic more than anything. Mm-hmm. I think Leao was clearly the best of the 4 up front players that game. Pulisic and Chukwueze was more frustrating because of
he lost the ball a lot.
Yes, it literally took the words out of my mouth. Yeah. He was just losing the ball way too easily, especially on the touchline. That kind of got annoying. And again, I also think because the midfield was just not good enough to help these guys. I really believe in that, because when you're that exposed at the back, why wouldn't Torino sit back, absorb it, and
Mhm.
then expose Milan? Because what else is there to do in that situation? You know exactly, like Milan's a good side, right? We would all like to acknowledge that they're probably the second best team in Italy, or at least in the conversation for it, which is not a bad thing. However, everybody knows how Milan can be beat.
Yep.
That's the problem. Everybody knows what your weakness is, where it is, and when they could attack it. And that was existent in this past match. Now, does that sort of change if you're able to have Fofana and Reinders from the start with more stable defensive players, with a Teo Hernandez, with a maybe Pavlovic or Gambia, right, at center back?
Mhm.
Where does that conversation kind of get that look of like, okay, look, we could try these guys up front against these players with these players behind them? Because if it's just going to be the same old players who expose them and Chow and Loftus Cheek and these players who are just not fit for a double pivot, then you sort of say to yourself, okay, well, then Pulisic and Chukwueze can't be up top together because we have to change something.
Yeah.
We have to. That's why there was rumors that he was considering Salamaker starting at the right wing over Chukwueze because they needed some of that work rate. And I was disappointed in both of them, in Pulisic and Chukwueze, because I think that they could still work together well enough. And I think it was just a poor performance in
Yeah.
general. And they never really got clicking. They never got going.
Was never at any point cohesive at all.
It's which was frustrating because they shouldn't be that bad. If you could struggle, it's one thing. That was just they were non-existent, which was very frustrating. I think at least Chuk attempted more. Pulisic looked a little bit more lost and timid, which was strange from him.
Pulisic was. So I think that again, he can play the number 10 role, and he's played it for the men's national team. And this isn't me saying that you completely abort mission on the whole Pulisic at number 10 role. But there were a lot of moments in this matchup because of what was going on in the midfield or lack thereof, as far as stability and balance and being able to just kind of like keep the ball and then progress the ball, move it forward, and maintain possession. I think Pulisic was so often coming in a little bit too deep, taking the ball deep, and he made a couple decent runs in the first half. I know there was one where he made like a late run into the box, and I think it was Rafa that squared one to him, and he tested the keeper. I don't know if it was pretty.
I think he hit the side netting. I don't even think.
No. There was one where there was a square pass from Rafa with I think the left foot, and Pulisic came to the top of the box and he hit it with his left foot and stung the gloves of Milinkovic Savic for a corner. Mm-hmm. So like. We saw glimpses. I think that Pulisic can be that type of player as well, where, look, if he's getting the ball, he can distribute, move forward, and, he's good with both feet. He can shoot with both feet. So I think that I'm less concerned with, Pulisic and Rafa coexisting because on many occasions last year, they, were interchanging, right? They were sharing the ball. They were kind of, working a lot together, whereas Chukwueze didn't really get a lot of that opportunity, at least consistent enough to build that relationship on the field, right? So that's what I'm thinking Chukwueze can do in time. But I don't see personally Fonseca making wholesale changes to this 11. I think he's going to play the players that we expected or probably would have wanted in match day one, but for whatever reason weren't ready. So Tijani instead of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, right? Like Morata instead of Jovic. Like the straightforward like chalk decisions I think that Fonseca will make.
And Teo Hernandez.
The defense is going to be the question. Whether he goes with, Gabia, does he have a short leash and he says, Gabia, you didn't do it. I got to put Malik, you didn't do it. I'm putting Gabia in there. I don't know. But I think that we're going to see more or less, 2 to 3 players that are new make their way.
We have some news coming in just now. There's a muscle problem for Morata, so he could miss the match against Parma.
Well, there's that.
That's via Milan news. We'll see. They're still a few days away from this, so my guess is he's not going to start.
It's going to be Jovic again, and that's not going to be Okafor. It's not going to be Okafor.
We don't know. We don't know. Could be.
I don't see.
I know what you're saying, but we don't know.
Knowing this club, it's going to be. The projected lineups are going to come out tomorrow or Wednesday, and then people are going to see them, and then they're going to say Fonseca out. He's playing Jovic again. That's how this fan base is.
And these people are not. These people are irrational. They live on Mars.
Listen, I would agree. I want to see Okafor, but
I'm just saying we just don't know with this manager yet. Teo Hernandez obviously getting slotted into this, So again, not to slander or attack Alexis, but we're talking about someone who's not a left back at all, and then adding the best left back in the world, or arguably the best left back in the world. Yeah, it's kind of an upgrade, I guess you could say. So in that sense, it matters.
Yeah.
I'm just still like so deflated reading the Morata news. It's just like in the back of my mind.
That one hits, man. That one hit me hard.
But I mean, are we
Already, there's already an injury.
Yeah, but I'm not really that surprised. They were kind of pushing the issue a little bit. You know, it's trying to like get a guy in that just got back from vacation. They start him against Monza. He features again and against Milan. Against Torino. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, overall, I mean, listen, they got to work against the Parma side who
they're going to get up for this game.
Again, well, they have a tough start to the season. Fiorentina and
but
Milan.
They're hosting AC Milan.
Exactly. That which was my next
in how many years at the Tardini against AC Milan? There's the American ownership clash too. Parma's owned by American owners. You have
Kraus,
and then you have AC Milan owned by American owners. So like, there's going to be a lot of motivation for Parma to come and make some noise in this match. Fiorentina, very good team. But with respect, they're not AC Milan, and that was not a home game in match day 1. So they're going to get up for this game. So this has the makings of a tricky one for Milan, no doubt. And truthfully, I don't even know where I go with my prediction, to be honest with you. I'm like,
well, that was going to be,
I don't know. Right now, I don't know. I might say 2-1. But these are the cardiac kids, this team. Truthfully, we might go up 2-0 and they score a goal in the 83rd minute and they pepper us with chances and we somehow hang on. That's how this Milan team is. I'm going to go 2-1 Milan. A lot of the problems still persist. We still look a little shaky up top. We don't finish our chances. The same theme we saw last year. Defensively, maybe if it's Gabbia, we might look a little bit better. We don't know what the projected 11 is. But I'm going to go 2-1. I think we wake up from that first match disaster. That feels like a loss. And I think we get a win here, and we put 3 points in the column.
It does feel like a loss for Milan. And I should have put the prediction thing up there. You guys let us know what your predictions are for the match against Parma. Let us know your thoughts on the match against Torino and how that kind of went. Listen, prediction for me, tough to say with no real 11 out. That's just kind of my thing, because we would just spend so much time on like, how is this going to go? Who's going to start? When?
And now all of a sudden you got one guy who can't play.
And you got one guy who can't play. Again, the important thing with Milan in this attack, they don't necessarily need that number 9 to win a game with goals. There's going to be goal creations and chances. That's not what I'm truly worried about. I'm more about the back line and midfield. Because I think Jovic and Okafor, despite what I think of Jovic is still capable of doing something. I would hope. If not, you should switch numbers again because that's whatever. So for me, what did you say? 2-1?
2-1.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're not getting a clean sheet. I don't see how.
Hold of me to assume we're going to keep a clean sheet. We're going to be tidy at the back, right? Like, we're not there yet, guys. We're not in clean sheet conversation yet.
I'm not going to overreact. In general,
no, not at all.
If this game kind of
but Martino, until we see that
we start off great last year.
No, I know that, but until we see that they can change defensively and they can at least be a little bit more sound. I mean, this wasn't even a team that was good in preseason defensively. Like, they haven't put forth a good defensive performance in how long? Can you point to the last good to above average defensive performance that Milan have put in?
I think maybe against Atalanta when Terry was the center back. I think that was the last time I was.
That was probably because look at the final match day. Look at the game against Torino.
I know. I watched everything. I know.
Like,
I will say, listen, it's just because I think it would be silly of me to say all this before Pavlovic plays. Like we don't know. We just don't know with this guy. I do think, like, obviously eventually he's going to make some mistakes and all of that. It just depends on who's on that back line. I cannot, but please, Paulo Fonseca, please do not start Loftus-Cheek in a double pivot. I cannot do it. You know what I'd rather tolerate? I'd rather tolerate Reinders and like Benacer with Loftus-Cheek as the 10 and Pulisic or Chuka.
Right, yeah.
I'd be able to tolerate that so much more. I cannot tolerate this guy as a double pivot. And it's just nothing against him. He's just, you can't play the position, my guy. This is not for you. You're not built for it. You cannot play. Because also, like, you talk about how big and important Tijani Reinder's quick passing was. How do you think we all saw it? Like, Loftus-Cheek, when he's sitting back as like a regista, he looks like a lumberjack, dude. It's too slow. Everything is way too slow when he works laterally. You can't be doing that. If Loftus-Cheek is downhill, you cannot stop him in this league.
The PSG
I truly
game.
believe that. I believe he's a problem.
The PSG
but also,
game.
where's the manager in this then? Which is, again, I don't want to harp on him. I don't want to. But when does the three-man midfield come into play? And you say, we have wingers and there's our striker up top. Because there's more eights and box-to-box players, Matsalas, whatever you want to call them, than there are double pivots. And by the way, with the signing of Yusuf Fofana, who I very much like, is still not a true number 6. So even then, you're still sacrificing this. And by the way, you know what ultimately changed Milan's fortunes to win the Scudetto and their best defensive performances, Matt? What was it? Benacer, Tonali, and Kessie. 3 midfielders together. And you have those players up top. It was not about just the number 10. The number 10 in this 4-2-3-1 seems like a luxury because when Pioli made that switch, Milan started playing so much better. So I feel like everyone is sort of still married to that. And I understand where Fonseca is coming from. Hopefully there's going to be more balance. That just was not the right lineup for it. Like it's so hard to judge Fonseca and this team when that's not the team. That's just not the team. That's not who we're expecting to see. And part of it's on him, part of it's on the players, and part of it's on the management not getting these guys in on time. You know, there's one thing when there's international players that are away, they're doing something. You can't do anything like that. Like, you can't solve that. It is what it is, right? But you can solve getting Pavlovic in sooner. You can solve getting Fofana in sooner. The guy was like literally begging.
Emerson.
I mean, whatever on that one. But you're right. And that's where it comes in to be frustrating. It's tougher to judge the club and the side because of that. And that's all. We're trying to look on the positive side of things. I know there's been so many people that tried and do that. We know some of you guys are critical of management. We understand that. All we kind of ask for is what Matt and I try and do our very best is to just be fair. And fair right now is Milan managed to come back from down 2-0 when it looked like they had no shot of getting any result. They got a result. And it'll be very funny if Torino finishes like top 8 because they play so well. Be like, yeah, you know what? Actually, a draw is not too bad coming back from them. That'd be nice to look at. But the overall point remains, and we all know, winning is the ultimate elixir. So let us know your predictions in the comment below. Any other final things? Kalulu's sale is now official. Not official, but it's pretty much been decided that Kalulu.
If you want to call Here We Go from Fabrizio Romano official, yes.
It's there. Like, Kalulu is on his way to Juve. We've discussed this in a previous podcast, so if you guys are interested in checking that out, go and check that out. I also saw a very interesting rumor and tweet by Nicolo Schira. I'm not sure if you saw it while we were recording here. We were in on Bondo from Monza, but Galliani says he's non-transferable. Dottore, I heard you and I've seen you lie to my face when I was a child. I know you could also be full of shit right now. So, I mean, he's a very, very talented player too. It's interesting to still see Milan be linked to someone like that. We'll see if they're in on Kone as well. Oh, okay. Perfect question for you, actually, before we head on out, because I didn't get a chance to ask you this. So, do you think even if Liberali might not be ready, right? And I'm talking about the number 10 position here. So Liberali may not be ready. Loftus-Cheek may not be deemed as a number 10. Pulisic has seen some of these struggles. Maybe they want to move him out of that position to the right winger. But they still want a number 10. Do you think that makes them act swifter? Obviously, after these sales, like, they still need Adli and Pobega out. Furlani has commented on that their suitors. Pobega has Genoa tailing him. Adli, there's been a couple of rumors, Saudi, Brentford. Do you think the push for Kone happens sooner if these number 10 struggles remain? Because he's more of an advanced attacking midfielder from what we understand. I know you know more about him than I do. Do you see, because again, being linked to midfielders like this is very interesting.
I don't see it. I think when it was weird because I remember when Milan were still pushing for Fofana, and then their reports were as an alternative, Milan are looking at Manu Kone, and everyone, which I agreed with, was saying they're not even the same position. What are we doing here? Like Manu Kone is more of like a traditional midfielder, more forward player, number 10 player. He's not a holding midfielder. What are we doing here?
Sure.
So the fact that Milan were still interested in Samardzic while they were still working on the Fofana track gives me some sort of inclination that they still want to add someone to that midfield, but maybe the profile is a little bit different. Now, it's weird because if you're going to run with a midfield that has two midfielders and a double pivot, and you want to play Pulisic and Chukwueze, where are you going to play all these guys? You're going to have 6 midfielders and you're playing with a double pivot, and you're playing with 3 attacking-minded players behind Morata. So I don't. Truthfully, it's weird because I thought that the press conference from Ibrahimovic, which I know you alluded to in our conversations on the weekend, that you found them very interesting. But the conversations have always been like, we're pretty much done. We got the 4 guys we needed, but then all of a sudden we're still following Manu Kone. So I'm like, which one is it?
Well,
Ibrahimovic has been playing sort of mind games with the media, with fans. Right, the 7th day.
Well, that's my point, dude. It's not the 7th day yet,
so there's a possibility.
Who knows what this?
But look what you're seeing here. You see that you're following the trend. You're following the track here. Kalulu's gone. Terracciano's gone. Like assuming those
likely,
right?
Paulo Torre and Origi gone. That's
Paulo Torre's gone. Said Etienne. Looks like it's happening.
Origi, they're gonna allow him to terminate his contract. Right? He's free to go wherever.
So you get those guys off the wage bill. I think that Milan, again, like I mentioned in our previous episode, I don't know if it was like our actual previous one with Fofana or the one before.
We did a lot.
Yeah, we did a lot.
The season preview, probably
was that this strikes me as a late opportunity by Milan. Because they've laid the groundwork and framework for another deal.
Deals.
They've worked on so many deals where they've got it close to the finish line, and then they're like, "We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you." For many guys, it seems. And Kone strikes me as one of those players that might be a late addition, but again, if it's a matter of money and Milan don't sell the players they need, they're not going to stretch. They're not going to.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that's obvious.
Like I was just saying, until we get those other players out, it's almost like a moot point, unfortunately. But also, there was the talk, and Isak raised a good point. He tweeted this out, and Ibrahimovic as well alluded to it with the purpose of Milan Futuro and the Italian quota that we need to have with these lists. Is, are you going to get in a Manu Kone when you can just simply promote, if at any point, Liberali?
Which again, I had a clip. We put it out. Said I expect first team minutes sooner than later.
So that's what strikes me with this team.
Yeah,
if you're telling me right now, we don't get another player.
I think they actually get the sales over, and there's going to be a surprise. I'm not saying it's going to be Kone himself.
We'll
I'm not saying it's going to be this great coup. I'm not saying it's going to be Tammy Abraham or something. Curious as to what they do at center back. I still think Bartezaghi might get a look there as the emergency guy.
They're going to promote players, I think. I think that's.
We just what's frustrating with this Milan though, and it's been interesting, and I want to make a couple more points on it. Really like 2 more points. What's interesting with Milan is we don't know how they're going to handle the Futuro thing, right? I think right now is they have the one match against Torino. They're going to be going against Venezia and Parma as well, and Lazio in the coming weeks and matches. But oddly, Matt, very transparent from 3 people. 1, we see Paulo Fonseca say it's no mistake on who we want. We want Youssouf Fofana. You never hear someone or a manager say that. They're like, we don't like to talk about other players. They're not here. They're not our players. Yeah. So we cannot speak on that, right? We hear that time and time again. Ibrahimovic, when he was talking about Xerxes earlier in the summer, he was kind of like, yeah, he's a good player, this, that. And then he also he kind of addressed it when the question was asked to him. What happened with Xerxes? Xerxes is a thing of the past. So they don't dodge these questions. They're not playing this game of dancing around things. And then again with Furlani's comments saying Pobega, Kalulu, and Adley, we have calls on these players. We have suitors for them. They are free to leave if they choose to do so, but we're also happy if they decide to stay or they do end up staying, not decide to say, because they could say yes and then a deal falls through if clubs don't agree to fees and all that kind of stuff. There's so much gray area and nuance in these things. But I am not surprised if they get these sales over the line that it would be a pleasant surprise addition at the end of the window. But that's also contingent upon these sales, in which you also said yourself. So we'll see what happens there. There's a lot to go through. Again, we just want to shout all you guys out. Subscribe and follow us on that Milan podcast. Over 100,000 views on all of our podcasts already within, we didn't really start taking this that seriously and consistently until like a year ago. Maybe even the start of 2024. We were kind of a little inconsistent, but we've done a really good job of doing this week in, week out. We're proud of the work. We're proud of all the support we've had because we've been doing this for years. And this is kind of like we finally found our landing zone here. And again, we would also just like to say a good old shout out to our friends, Serie A Sit Down with Frank and Richard, again with the Kicks and Picks pod with Nick, Diani, Scotty, and Steve. They're all great Serie A fans of multiple clubs. Shout out to Wayne Gerard, Sean McIntosh as well, both Roma and Lazio fans respectively. And again, just Uncle Sharma as well. Can't forget Mr. Sharma. Backfired on that Retegui tweet, brother. And again, just going through all the other Milan podcasts, MLM podcast with Max and Gino, Sempre Milan podcast, obviously. Those are our guys there with Ali, Maddie.
Milan Weekly.
Again, thinking of Old Hard Rossonero, thinking of Milan Lab as well. Milan Weekly podcast. Kush, our good friend, go and check out that season preview video. Matt and I were both on it. He does a great job. Fabio as well, who's coast to coast with him and Gio. Fabio is just the damn best, bro. I just love the guy. Badir is back as well. I'm not too sure if he's doing strictly Milan content, but Badir is back. If you like someone who likes to shout and probably the smartest reactionary person I've ever met. And I say that in a compliment, but I've never seen someone so reactionary in my life. But that's how passionate he is as a guy. And I mean well.
Football encyclopedia, man. His recent video, he was going through like Chelsea and he was like picking apart from every angle. So yeah.
To be not even to take away from Badir, but that is pretty damn easy these days to rip apart Chelsea. But yeah, again, truly appreciate all the support, guys. We work so hard, and happy early birthday to you, Mr. Santangelo. I believe your birthday is in 3 days from now, correct?
22nd, yes.
For the recording, yeah. You and my sister have the same birthday. That's who it was. So my brother's is on the 31st as well. So I knew.
So hopefully we do something on the weekend. I'm not gonna say what, but I'm gonna say what. I want to win on my birthday. I want to win for my birthday.
All right, that wasn't. You act like that was some big ass secret, dude.
Because I don't want to jinx this team. This team, if I put it out there, everyone thinks.
Shit, it doesn't matter. Someone said I jinxed something. No such thing.
They said I jinxed it too because I put please win, and they're like, you again?
That's true. That's true. I woke up to that. I was so tired on Saturday morning from the Olympics, and then I wake up. I'm like, there's that tweet, and it was a ton of retweets. I don't think I've ever seen. You usually get the likes, but that had a lot more retweets. I think people like it more, and they're just that loud minority group of idiots that just like to blame you.
It's my fault. It's my fault. Not Malik Chow. I'm the one that defended on that.
It's true. It's true. We should definitely get someone to edit, and I'll just keyframe your tweet. Please win, and it's just Chow trying to kick the ball off the fucking goal line. But yeah, again. Oh, by the way, goal line technology working phenomenally at San Siro.
Yeah. Business as usual. Oh, and the TV rights deal. People didn't even know where to watch the Serie A games on the weekend.
Glad that got resolved for some of you. If not, piracy doesn't kill football. Incompetent leaders up top do. So again, we appreciate you guys so much. Like, subscribe, comment, and take care.